All right, we're diving back into Amanda Lepera's memoir, Losing Dad. We are now in part 2, and this is where things really start to accelerate. This is the period where her father, Joseph's paranoid schizophrenia, tightens its grip, and the man his family knew and loved begins to vanish. It all kicks off with this simple but honestly bone-chilling exchange. Joseph's wife, Hilda, is trying to reach him after he's been in the hospital. She's just trying to connect, to pull him back. And his answer? Yes, dear. It's completely empty, hollow. It's in that tiny moment you can feel this huge emotional Grand Canyon that's opened up between them. He's there in the room, but his mind? It's somewhere else entirely. And that feeling of disconnect, well, it pretty much set the stage for everything that followed. By late 1996, Joseph is back at home, but home is no longer a safe space. It becomes the setting for his slow-motion collapse. The family is, for all intents and purposes, living with a stranger. A man who's being controlled by this deep, dark paranoia that's just starting to bubble to the surface.
And just look at this timeline. You can see how fast everything fell apart. The end of 1996 wasn't just a slow slide, it was a total freefall. The family was trying anything and everything. Hospitals, a desperate trip to Mexico for some alternative treatment. But every single attempt to find some stability just ended in an even bigger crisis. I mean, Thanksgiving, a day that's supposed to be about gratitude and family, ends with a complete breakdown that sends him right back to the hospital. Just relentless.
So what was actually going on in his mind? The diagnosis was paranoid schizophrenia. But here's the really cruel twist. A huge part of this illness is something called anosognosia. It's a severe lack of insight. Basically, the very organ that's sick, his brain, is incapable of recognizing its own sickness. A doctor even warned Hilda, his wife, that if he couldn't accept he was ill, it was only going to get worse. It's a horrifying catch-22, right? How in the world do you treat someone who doesn't believe they need to be treated? And immediately, the illness started to poison his life from the inside out. The paranoia wasn't just random fears, it was deeply personal and incredibly cruel. It latched onto the most important relationship in his life and just twisted it into something ugly and unrecognizable. Joseph started accusing Hilda, his wife, of cheating on him. The one person he should have trusted the most became the villain in the delusions his own mind was creating.
The next year, 1997, was just a brutal, emotional roller coaster for the whole family. The illness was so unpredictable. You'd have these little moments of hope that would just get your spirits up, only for the inevitable crash to come and make everything feel 10 times worse. And in the summer of '97, they got one of those moments. The storm seemed to clear for a bit. They had a period of peace where things almost felt normal, like the before times. For just a little while, they had their husband and their dad back. And that little glimmer of hope, it was so precious, but also so fragile.
And then, the crash. His daughter Jackie shares this amazing news she's engaged, and the moment is just completely shattered by Joseph's reaction. It was just cold, empty. There was no fatherly pride, no shared joy, nothing. And this wasn't just him being in a bad mood. This was the illness literally erasing his ability to feel and connect. It absolutely crushed his daughter, and it was this stark, painful reminder that the man they knew was just gone.
By the end of that same year, the private torment Joseph was feeling became a terrifying life-or-death crisis. In December, he tried to take his own life by overdosing on pills. This wasn't just a battle for his mind anymore. It was now a desperate fight to keep him alive.
So that brings us to the next period, from 1998 into early 1999. And this is really the point of no return. This is when the consequences of Joseph's illness became real, tangible, and devastating, as the entire foundation of his life was just dismantled piece by piece.
It was a total collapse, and it happened systematically. First, he sells the family home, the place that held decades of their memories, just gone. Then he's offered early retirement, and just like that, his career is over. His behavior gets more and more erratic, and he pushes his own kids away. And finally, his wife Hilda, just completely broken down and exhausted, has to flee to her home country of Argentina just to get some breathing room. Every single loss just isolated him more, cutting him off from his past, his identity, and everyone who loved him.
And into that massive void that was left behind, the illness found something new to latch onto. A religious obsession started to take root, and it grew and grew until it took over everything else. But this wasn't some gentle, comforting faith. This was fervent, absolute, and it gave his psychosis a brand new, twisted logic to operate under.
And that obsession leads us to the final nightmare of this period. By the middle of 1999, the transformation is complete.
Joseph isn't just a man with an illness anymore. He's living in a completely different reality, a world governed by what he truly believes are direct orders from God.
And this new reality, it came with a whole new set of bizarre rules. He believed God told him to destroy all the family photos because they were graven images. Only the King James Bible was the real word of God. You couldn't give praise to any person, you couldn't even clap your hands for someone. And he, Joseph, had been chosen. He had to become a pastor and preach this new, rigid truth to the whole world. He was literally building a new, delusional universe for himself.
For Hilda, the final straw, the absolute breaking point, didn't come from one of his religious arguments. It came from an act of shocking, sudden cruelty. In a fit of rage, Joseph kicked her two small, beloved dogs down a flight of stairs. For Hilda, that was it. That was the final, undeniable proof that the man she had married was gone, and that something dangerous had taken his place.
So Hilda finally calls the police, absolutely desperate for someone, anyone, to step in and help. And their response? It's just a devastating summary of how broken the system was for them. They said, being religious is not a crime. They couldn't see the raging mental illness underneath. All they saw was a man's religious beliefs, and their hands were tied. The system completely failed them. The family was on their own. This last haunting image really captures the whole tragedy, doesn't it? The family's journey through this hell of psychosis and loss leaves us with a question, one that echoes in the lives of so many other families out there. When the illness itself is what's stopping a person from even realizing they're sick, how do you even begin to help them?